His teacher was paralysis. Her teacher was addiction. With love, they found each other. You are here now for the Conscious Couple podcast.
So today we have our first official guest. Scott and I are having together. And as you can tell, we had some issues with the goddamn microphones.
What else is freaking new?
We have one microphone, and I have been asked not to lean into the microphone, but I don't do well with people telling me what to do. You guys will learn that over the course of this Conscious Couple podcast. You'll learn. So those of you listening, and you can't hear on YouTube, if you're listening on audio, you won't know what the hell I'm talking about, but hopefully you can hear me. That's what's important. So today we are not talking about It's Always Sunny. And first and foremost, welcome and thanks for watching. Thanks for tuning in to all of our nonsense and madness. I did want to say something because someone had commented that her sister was listening to us, our Conscious Couple podcast. She listened to like one or two episodes. And
having this nonsense?
Yeah. And her friend and her sister said they just did a 2-part series on conscious parenting. You have to listen to it. And her friend said, I didn't realize they talk about parenting. I thought they just talked about couples. So obviously we need to make it very well known.
See, this is why I don't like the Conscious Couple. I like Scott and Em.
He does. So we'll ask the audience.
And I'm always right.
Everybody who's listening, do you prefer the Conscious Couple podcast or do you prefer Scott and Em?
Yeah,
what do you
Scott
think?
and Em.
Tell us your thoughts. Okay. So with that being said, welcome to another episode. Today we have our first official guest, and his name is Mr. Simon Harris.
Lord Simon Harris.
The Lord, Sire, Simon Harris, our token English gentleman.
Token. Oh, yeah. Brilliant.
Our token. Okay, so just to give you all a very quick backstory, we met Sai at a Dr. Joe Dispenza retreat when he was taken back by the loud American man from Philly that was speaking nonsense, and he couldn't stay away. He had to hear what this nonsense was.
Like a glue trap.
And so he went over to see what the nonsense was.
I attract mice and roaches that get stuck in my webs.
And the rest is history. It was friendship at first sight, I think, for the three of us for sure. And then we started down this journey really together. We created the Freedom Project together. Gosh, I don't know, like 4 years ago.
Yeah.
And
wow.
Yeah. And it was
it's 4 years this week. Wow.
Yeah. It was really focused on just helping people move into their own freedom. And since in the last year and a half, we've branched out individually, but the Freedom Project is still there, and the intention and the mission is still there. And that's really to offer people tools, practical tools that they can use in their own journey, spiritual journey, self-help journey, to really help create transformation and change. And so Sai's specialty and his role in the Freedom Project was freedom activation, which is a really powerful process. So with that being said, so I don't just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah, let's not blah, 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 blah.
Let's start, Sai,
Somebody
with,
else a chance to
I think, a really important question for people who are just tuning into us for the first time and know nothing about us. Can you share what brought you to freedom activation? And we'll start there. One question.
Yeah, great. Well, first of all, I think Scott and Em versus the Conscious Couple. Just let's get that out there as the title.
Of course he does. Of course he voted with you and not me.
Please.
That's my bro. So what brought me to freedom activation? Yeah, it's a long and winding journey. And ultimately, I tried many things before that had unlocked stuff, but didn't resolve it for me, or I couldn't find resolution with it. I was getting more and more information, uncovered stuff that I'd buried so hard I didn't know it was there. So I'd done that very well. That came up like, well, now what do I do with this pile of stuff I've got? Kept looking at it, but there was no it was just still there. I was just repeating it and didn't know how to get away from the emotion. So I ended up although it was there, I was still trying to bury it in ways to try and cope with it still. And it was with Gabs and I on the journey looking for, complementary, holistic, whatever you want to call it, meds and therapies to help on her cancer journey, that I met somebody who introduced me to somebody. And on that podcast, met somebody else. That was the Dr. Joe bit. And then on that, I then found this guy, Dr. Keith Scott Mumby, online, this sort of English-Scottish guy that had alternative healing methods and could, help with cancer. So I chatted with him. And then on that, he's like, okay, well, let's talk about you a bit. So I went through some of my stuff, and he's like, well, you need to talk to people too. So he introduced me to this wonderful Danish guy, Per Schutz, who to this day, I smile about him now. Just the most gentle guy, just sat there and listened and let me talk, and then just started on this process without me really knowing what he was doing. And it just helped me unpack very clearly and crisply where my energies, where my anger and resentment, where my sadness was, where my, whatever it was that I had inside me, I could see very clearly who I was pointing my finger at, who I was blaming for it. So that was great. It's like, oh yeah, it's their fault. And then he dropped the inconvenient bombshell that, no, that's all inside you. And I was like, wait, what? No, they did this to me, And then as I went through that process, the realization, letting some of the emotion out, big lots of emotion out, the realization occurred and still occurs now. It's not completely done because we still have those bits that, damn, it's me. I'm the one that I'm the one that's holding on to this energy. I'm the one that's got the attachment. It's not the other person to me, it's me to them. And that was a really big step all those 5-6 years ago. And that's where the freedom comes, is knowing, oh my God, it's me that's holding on to it, not the other person. They've got no idea I'm holding on to it, like a water skiing champion, whatever. I'm the one that can choose to let go. And that letting go is way bigger than I thought it was, because letting go of that's my armor. That's what's kept me safe as a coping mechanism. So I've now got to let go of this that's got me to here. And that's the process for me in freedom activation, all the other stuff we've done and it's a 2-step process where you bring it up and then you have a pause and then you let go emotional feelings, and then you move into step 2. How do you want to think and feel about these people or events? And that's where you cement in your new habit, how you want to be in your life now around these people, which can go from neutrality to total compassion and understanding. Anywhere in there, it's up to you how far you can move. And some of them is really, really quick, and some take a bit longer. They're a bit more sticky. The ones for the people who are really, really close to you, who really matter to you and or were very formative in your early years, parents, siblings, school, etc. So, and it's not a linear process with all of this, as you know. You start one bit, you think you've dealt with that, you do a few more, it then leads back to you've cleared some energy, some emotional stuff. You can go back and re-look at the first one. It allows some more stuff to come up, which happened to me just yesterday. So,
It's really interesting because even today I was listening to this gentleman. He's a channel, and I've heard him before, but I think he did somebody before. Like somebody he channeled somebody before, and now he channels Saint Germain or something. I don't really know what that is, but
that's a liqueur, Saint Germain.
He was
a liquor, you mean?
He was explaining like what this channel, what this whatever he's channeling is and what they're talking about. And the guy who's interviewing asked, he goes, okay, so what does he say about what awakening is? And he says, well, awakening is when something traumatic happens to you normally. And it's, let's say a mother who has, 2 kids and is divorced, and she's not in a relationship anymore. She's in mass depression, and then she gets sick, and then she has to look at the things that get her into that place and decide, I have to change this, right? That's what awakening is. And then you kind of, when you feel like all of a sudden you got this warm blanket laid over top of you, it's really comfortable for a while. It's really, you're kind of in a bliss state, and then comes the hammer. And that is taking this awakening now and transferring it into embodiment, where your body now has to take in the awakening process, and it's not so gentle for the body, So I guess the first part would be the spirit part, where your spirit awakens, and because you have it in you, it's, it's all inside you. And then, then the body has to take in this information and now change its belief. So the body has a belief, and, Sai and I have obviously talked about this, that the body has a belief and now it has to let go of these beliefs. And it's not an easy process. And it can be a very long and arduous process. And
I was going to say arduous.
Arduous. I said it.
In my consciousness.
I wrote it down today. It was going to be, I wrote it down before you said that.
No.
So I said it before you said that. Anyway, it now is, anything that can kind of shed light on, how do I do this now? That is the ultimate, goal for us going through it, for you going through it, for all these people that are awakening and what that means. And it's not like some, woo-woo spiritual bullshit. It's the real thing of we are literally changing. We are changing our DNA. We are changing because we can't live in this old paradigm, this old energy we are now moving into. So if it's happening to you, it's actually really, really good. But now what? Now, how do I do this? And I say all that because this is the perfect practice into understanding, oh, it's this stuff, these thoughts. And so I need to change that. How do I change that? Through this process, it kind of puts a light on it. You know what I mean? Like it helps.
Totally. I think, we've gone through the freedom activation process. And my next question to you would be, because for me, it was such a powerful process. And like you said, realizing it's me, right? Like like I need to change my beliefs. So how do you approach that with somebody that has had a traumatic event? Let's say their husband was abused them or something that happened to them, right? That normally we would say in our community, well, it's not about that, it's about you. So how do you approach that with one of your clients in the way that's helping them to understand that you hear them, and yet as long as they continue to hold on to what we call a victim mentality, they will never truly have their freedom? How do you approach that in this way?
Yeah, and you approach it very gently with this. The beautiful bit about freedom activation is getting someone to sort of have that realization that when you drop the mic drop, you are 100% the cause and effect of your life. Most people haven't heard that before. It's the outside world. It's a complete sort of 180 look. So you have to, I don't do much written stuff because it's not a thinking process. This is the bit I have to encourage with people. Please try and take your head off and your analytical thinking off, because all of this stuff goes back to childhood when you could feel, but you couldn't think. So as the three of us sit here now, we can maybe remember childhood, but we absolutely can't know what we were feeling in that moment, really, how we were interpreting everything. But we've still got the feelings in the body. So those are the foundational parts of where we are. But if you get to the point where later on in life there has been an event, and let's face it, stuff happens, there are going to be events and circumstances in all of our lives that are going to hit us. We are human. We are going to feel it. We are very feeling beings. We used our feelings much more in childhood. We tend to use them much less in adulthood. There's numbers around that. 100% awareness for kids with no filter up to the age of 8. Adults, we only use 12% of our awareness, and we're much more in our thinking mind. So you're not on the same radio frequency to start with. So when you bring up a big trauma, as the guide, I'm here to fully see and hear the person in front of me. I'm here for them, and I want to hear their words. It's very, very important that this gets used, the voice gets activated, because most people swallow it back down. And, you've done this, Em, with a lot of clients. You can literally see it. You can see a lump here. You can see this reacting as they try and go, wait a minute, am I going to let this out, or shouldn't I be burying this like I've done it before? So for each person, it's going to be very different as to how far down the line they are. So for people who've done more of this work and know more of the language, they've got that language, but the fact that they're further down the line doesn't mean they can access it. It still means they're resistant to bringing it up, because for all of us, it's going to reference pain and suffering, and we don't want to feel that. So we've got these adaptive methods to stop that coming up. And we're now sitting here inviting them to lean into the feelings, not the thoughts, to allow your body and your voice to shout, scream, swear, or just say it however, to get your head out of the way and let it come as it comes. And that's really part of the freedom and freedom activation, is that people say to me is like, I've never said this to anyone before, or I haven't said this to myself for a very long time. And in that, what was held down below Now you speak it out. It's now a vibration. So many people, I spoke to someone yesterday and today, oh my God, the energy's gone from it. Because now you've voiced it and let it out, it can transmute. You can't get rid of the energy, but it has to be transmuted. So by doing that, it's like, oh my God, why did I hold, some people start laughing, some people start crying. Why have I held on to this all this time? Because it was a protective decision you made in that moment, and you haven't really revisited that moment. So, back to a trauma where someone's being abused. Yes, there is physicality. Your space is being invaded. How are you interpreting it? How have you taken that on board? Can you look at that in a different way? Yeah. Can you get to the point where you are not jabbing? You're not want to knife that person. Yeah. Can you suddenly see it from when you let go? Because once we let go of the emotional attachment, that's the water skiing rope, the fishing line. Once you can sort of let go of that, and you can lean back, and then we might do some heart-centered work, a bit of breath work, a bit of havening, just to bring the person back to heart center where they're calm, because you can't think of the new habits you want to have around that person when you're activated, because we know when we're activated, our thinking is untrue 100% of the time. So you have to wait till you're back to center to then go right. And the invitation is, how do you now, how do you choose to think and feel about that person now, that empowers you, that serves you, that stops you dropping back into the old habit of, they did this to me. Yeah. Yes, you were a victim, absolutely. But how long are you holding on to that? And then you move back to victim consciousness. And, those are very powerful words. You tell someone they've been a victim, they know they have. And now you let them come to the realization that they are holding on to that victimness. And it's the trauma, not the traumatic event, that is affecting their life. And how far can they get to reprogramming it, which is the step 2. And for some people, it takes longer. Many people I've spoken to, my father for me was, I thought, the biggest energy in my life, because he was my hero. I looked up to him, and I now can shift back into that. But for a while I couldn't, because no, you should have protected me. I had the story that I used to protect me. It wasn't my fault. This should have happened. Someone should have done something, that this shouldn't have happened. And I've shared with him now, and he's got the realizations around that. And now, having let go of that attachment, I can now see him in a completely different light, that is my choosing, and has compassion, has empowerment, allows me to see him for the amazing person that he was, with the bits that he did, with what he could, as who he was on his journey. That's not a one phone call event.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's the thing. And I think that's where people,
much as we want it to be,
they want, and we do, and it's understandable we do, because it's it can be very, very painful. Yeah. You're opening old wounds to reseal them again, right? But you have to leave the wound open so it can keep bleeding out this old energy tied to it, this old toxicity tied to it, And I think that's, if there's any of the awakening process, that's one of the hardest things is, well, shouldn't it be done by now? Yeah, but you've been stuffing this shit down for 30, 40 years. So, you have to give it time to leach out. And I think with the process of freedom activation, it kind of is, it's not just letting all the air out of the balloon. It's letting it out, because it's a tool that, it's kind of like a carpenter. I got to cut a piece of wood. Well, I'm going to have to cut some next week too. So I have the saw to be able to cut the wood today, and I have the saw to cut the wood.
That's a great analogy.
Because I'm the analogist. I mean, I think this whole podcast should be called The Analogist.
It could be.
Yeah. Right.
I'm fine with that. I'm totally fine with that, Sire. You go for it.
Of course. Yeah. But I think that's, the number one thing I think people need to understand when they do step into this ring, because they're being called for it. Number one, just like we're talking about, that's why the trauma comes. So you can look at your life and say, something has to change. Yeah. If no trauma, no change. Right. Yeah. So now you're stepping into this, and what do I expect? And there isn't really, it's a kind of the new hip thing to do. Right. So now it's kind of like understanding this process is really shitty and amazing at the same time. It's messy. It's going to cause you to think about things that you have been thinking about your whole entire life and deciding if it's real, right? because ultimately all you're doing here is you are changing your perspective. What you just explained about your father, and of course that resonates with all of us because we all have one, and chances are they were our guides. Our fathers, our mothers are our guides, and surely they messed up along the way because we look at them as perfect. Well, clearly they're not, but then we have to open these things up. And what you did with your father is you changed the perspective of how you viewed it. You saw the energy in a different way. And by you coming out, and again, this is, I think, one of the biggest and most challenging for people, is to actually step in front of the, king rat, the perpetrator, and to actually speak it out. Right. And now it's the matzo ball is in their hand now, and that's the big one. And it can be really scary to do. But I think through the process of doing it, you start to realize, well, this person that I think is separate from me, that is standing in front of me, is actually a part of me. And now I am clearing the view of how I see them. And it's a very simple way to get through and to release that old stagnant shit, like out of an open wound. And you have to leave it open. You have to leave it open. You can close it up for a little bit, but it's going to come back, and you have to find that, pull the tool out in order to open it up again.
I think all three of us could agree from starting this
I won't.
Guide journey together. We really started that together, helping guide people and teach people. And I think we could all agree that one of the most challenging parts is helping people to understand that it is not a quick fix, that this is a process that takes place over time, and that the three of us don't offer anybody a quick fix, because if we do, it wouldn't last, and that this is a process you have to make a lifestyle.
But in seeing the result, right? That's, I think it took us, we had our own result, but we were always still in it, right? Because when you're awakening and whatever, it's the process, and you're in that process. And I think the further that we have gone this road together and, watched people's transformations, not just ours, but then watch somebody else go through it, it takes the time in order to be on their journey with them to then see the change in them. And then, just yesterday, I was on on one of the calls yesterday, and, somebody that has been in the Healing Blueprint for, a year and a half, to see them, the difference in them is, it comes on slowly, and it comes on step at a step at a step at a step. I like to say it like that.
I was just thinking about
it's kind of like having a kid. It's kind of like having a kid that, they're 9 years old, and all of a sudden, you go away for 2 weeks and you see them again, and they're like a foot taller. And it was like, you don't see them when they're in front of you all the time changing, but suddenly they changed, right? And they didn't change, you changed in the way you see them. Correct. But to watch somebody struggle through all these things, and then one day, oh no, that doesn't bother me anymore. No, that I don't struggle with that. That really doesn't show up for me anymore. It's kind of crazy that you say that now, because I really have not had that come up for me anymore. And that's the one, because you don't even realize how free you are until you realize you're free.
Thinking about that this morning. So actually, that's a great next question. Is I know for you, for all of us, the three of us, we talk about these tools that we offer people because we use them ourselves, right? Because we do them ourselves. And so why don't you share a little bit about talking about seeing people change, how your kids have shared with you how different you were and how these tools have affected you.
Oh, wow. That's just brought some, So I think as Scott just said there, what we don't really know, we all want the high-speed lift or elevator for you guys in your different language, rather than we're prepared to take the escalator, which is whatever you call that as well, that goes very, very slowly. But when you look back, you realize how far you've come. And if you knew that now, you would definitely sign up to it. But at the time, you're in pain and suffering. You just want that to go. And we don't really realize what that means. So for me, look at them, this is great because you've met Tabby, who you've had the most chats with, my now 19-year-old daughter, who's watched me on my journey. And I look back with her as a child and I can see the impacts I had on her life with how I was back then, which was a very, still pretty chilled guy, but I could go from 0 to 1,000 miles an hour in less than a blink of an eye. And, they never understood that. And to be fair, I didn't understand it. I just thought it was natural because that's what I'd grown up around. And then realizing that that's not a suitable way to be. And, Gabs, my second wife, had said, how do you do that? You're just sitting there and then you just suddenly out of nowhere just erupt. And I'm like, I don't know, but it seems right to me. It's the natural thing to do. I'm right. So as I've gone through this with the kids and watched them and had to apologize to them, saying that I'm sorry, I'm trying to get hold of this. I'm realizing that this is not who I want to be, and this is not me. This is stuff I've inherited, but nonetheless, I've got to get rid of it. Please bear with me, so to speak. And then Jojo go, look, my son just say, you can't keep saying you're sorry, for example. But it's like, well, I don't know what else to say to you, but please bear with me. And now it's so infrequent that I do it. And they all say, we can't believe, how different you are, and just keep doing the work, and, amazing. And, we can Tabby can now come and share with me. She shares pretty much damn everything with me, which is amazing as a daughter to a father, I think, because hasn't got the mother to talk to, which is a big loss. And yet I'll still have my little eruptions. The buttons are still in there. The traumas are still in there, that when something happens, it's like, the habit is still there. How quick I can catch it, how deep I go with it, how much I explode, how much I hold on to it. Am I still, oh shit, that was me, sorry. So it is a tool that you can grab in the moment, knowing that in the moment you have gone offline, so you don't know you've gone offline. That's the reality of it. We don't all realize we've just gone to there because it feels natural, because that's the habit self we'll go to. But gradually that habit self becomes more empowering, that serves you, that allows you to catch your thoughts, your words, your actions, your deeds, and how you're expressing yourself to people. Like, wait a minute, that was all about me. That's all about me. It's all about me. And I want you to know that's all about me. That's really what we're all doing all the time. So you can catch that. And, and you and Scott have only known me as on this journey. You didn't know the old me. And I guess the best testimonial for me is you go to Tabby, I don't know who you're talking about. This, we don't recognize. We can't match that old person with this person now in front of us. And I've, lots of my old friends, for example, old acquaintances, have sort of not fallen away, but I don't see them as much because I found it challenging to change in that energy. That is my old environment. And this is the big inconvenience as you do this. Those people were in my life because that fitted my habit and fitted theirs. I've now put me first with the yellow oxygen mask. I choose me. And there is some inconvenience and adjustment around that. People don't quite understand it. And who am I doing this for? I'm doing this for me. I'm not. And the beautiful thing with freedom activation is, there is no blame or judgment. It is just this beautiful, safe space where you can share out loud with people who want to be on that process. Those that don't talk about it with them because they're not on that wavelength yet. They don't want to know about it. They're over there getting on with their lives. They're fine, as I thought I was. You find it when you're ready, and different people are ready at different times for whatever they're going through. And, trauma can be something physical, or it can be someone rolling their eyes at you, or it can be someone not talking to you. It can be something really, really, really subtle that is actually more powerful than a physical or a shouting trauma. A drip, drip, drip habit every day of someone just tutting at you. You're exposed to that as a kid. Eventually you go, what have I done wrong? I'm bad. I've done something wrong. I need to fix that so I can get their approval, so I can get their attachment back. So we now absorb the other person's behavioral trait and we make it our fault and we blame ourselves. And that for me is the chronic condition. That's the pandemic in the world. If you want a real pandemic, that's the, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'm not lovable. So therefore I won't be loved. Therefore no one will be attached to me. Therefore I'm going to wither away and die effectively, emotionally. And that starts in childhood. So freedom activation allows you to really clearly see those patterns in you, who you've assigned them to, and you gently work away at them.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's, even like when you first started to talk about how the kids originally saw you and viewed you as, and Gab saying this eruption would happen, totally relate to that. But then I think the process is, and I think it's really important that people understand that process, because I think this outlines why the time frame, why it doesn't just happen overnight. Because at first you realize, yeah, I do that. I always thought that was just human nature, and that's what you do, because I watched my dad do that. So now, yeah, I do that. And then when you do it now, because it is a habit, so now when you pick up the cigarette, you have the outburst, you say, oh, there it is. That's the thing. Oh, that's what it looks like, right? Yeah. And then now you're looking at the cigarette pack, waiting for it to show up, waiting to take a cigarette. And then when it happens, damn it, I did it again. And it just came on. So I got to be more, cognizant of when this is happening, when the storm is starting. I need to do something different when the storm is forming, before the outburst comes, right? Before the rain comes. And then you learn to work with it. First, it's the observing. Then the awareness of it, of what it is. Now it's learning to, it's coming. I better start covering stuff up. I better start, right? Because the rain's on its way. Yep. And that is where, that's where the time frame comes in. Because again, I think, and I've heard this, we all have heard this. Yeah, but it's so long and it's so painful. You know what I mean? This awakening process. But again, when you say you just have to stay in the boat, because you're sailing out of the storm. You're in it, and now you have to be in it so you could recognize when you're out of it. When you see it on the horizon over there, you know what to do. To sail in the opposite direction. Then instead of going back into the storm, because that's what we do a lot.
I think that's a great analogy, actually, because actually thinking about,
I'm the analogist.
And it's just, I'm so I'm so grateful for your analogies. And but you're in the storm, the eye of the storm, which keeps circling around us, the vortex, the hurricane. And actually, just as you said that, just imagine as you're in it, you're like, oh my God, it's going to hit me again. And then suddenly it just slowly evaporates, and just the storm just disappears, and the seas calm down. That's the work we do. And that requires commitment, persistence, patience with yourself, compassion with yourself, learning the word forgiveness, understanding what that means. All of these new words and meanings that you have to reinterpret and unlearn and relearn, that serve you, that allow you to hold on to, if I get knocked off center, which is going to happen, stuff is going to happen out in the real world. At what point is it happening? Can I just accept it as it is? At what point is my habit the reaction to it? The three of us could be watching something, having totally different experiences of the same thing. So it can never be the thing. That is one of the first things you learn with doing this journey, but certainly with freedom activation. Whatever you think it is that's bothering you, it's not. It's your interpretation of it.
Yeah.
Now that's a big pill to swallow.
Yeah, it is. Yeah,
and I think there's one other, and I think this is a great last question. I think there's one other ingredient that you forgot to mention in there on top of all that I think you are really, really, really good at. So I know at one point at the end of the statement, you say a phrase, and it really doesn't matter. And we also have in alignment with that, there was a Facebook group created called
Absolutely.
Rule Number 6. That rule number 6 came from Sai. I don't know if Sai made that up or he, but I'm putting those two together because I think the other ingredient is lightheartedness and laughter. So would you talk about how that is been?
Absolutely. I mean, laughter was my greatest medicine. It's what kept me going through life, without a doubt. That schoolboy humor, like the three of us together, we are in the sandpit. Other stuff just disappears. In that moment, the rest of the world just evaporates. Your phone's not there. No one else is there. There are no worries. You're just playing. So the question is, what stops us staying in that moment? What stops us holding on to that longer? And it's just thoughts. It's just your habits, your feelings coming up. So you do go through the process of bringing the feelings up. We have to let the energetic feelings in the aura, whatever you want to call it, in the body, they have to come up and out. You have to release them so they can then transmute. And it can be, you can feel them physically and or crying, which is a great, great release. You can shout, swear, whatever you want to do. You can all of that, the body, it's the body's way of letting go. And that's the first part of the process. Once you've sort of done that, then you find people can laugh. I mean, you know, some people go, I can't even believe I wrote that in the statement. And they just start smiling and laughing, and you laugh with them. Yeah. But until they'd said it out loud, it's in the original energy. It was buried, however long ago that was. And we're not letting go of that. So again, then you can start getting that contrast of pain, pain, pain. Oh, laughter. Oh, you feel lighter. People, women especially, you can literally look them 10 or 15 years younger. They really hold tension on their faces, just like it shows. And that starts to go. And I think to go straight from, you know, from pain and suffering into laughter, to me, it's to use the spiritual bypass. You know, maybe you've got to jump too far and you're making yourself laugh, but actually the pain is still there. So it is that journey of getting back to laughter. And rule number 6, which I heard on a British radio station, and if you look it up on YouTube, I think it's Zander, you know, some doctor talks about it. And it was just that way of going, oh my God. Well, rule number 6 is don't take yourself so goddamn seriously. So at any point we're not here or smiling or we're digging in, it's like, oh, fuck, there I go again. Something's got me. Something's taken my attention away, which is the body going, where's that familiar chemical hit we have normally had this time of day that the nervous system is used to and thinks it is? You have to retrain it. So the nervous system has to readjust to feeling lighter, to having laughter, to having joy, or just being peaceful, just staring out the window, just looking at, you know, I love looking at the waves and, or the, you know, anything. What can you look at where this is offline? And that just gets slightly longer and longer and longer. So for me, laughter is a great one. And then, you know, the big ones are forgiveness and compassion. Can you suddenly see the other person in a completely different light? Where, oh my God, what did they go through? What have they gone through? Can I hold that space for them? I forgive them. It's a big word, forgiveness, and it's not the word we think it is. It's not what you think. You are not letting them off the hook. You are forgiving them for you because you're the one holding on to the attachment. And then can you forgive and release? And then can you have gratitude? So, you know, they're all big words that we use on this journey, but as you evolve, they have deeper levels of truth and meaning to you. And the more you go, gratitude, forgiveness, laughter, you know, you are in a whole different space. To get to there, you have got to get rid of your baggage, the rocks on your back, the stories, you know, what is it? 20 to 80,000 thoughts a day equates to 10 to 20 books a day. Every day you are putting in your library, every day since you were born. And they're 95% the same books every day. So you have been reaffirming that story your whole life. It's not going to vanish overnight. With people it's not so powerful about, that can disappear quite quickly. But the people, your inner circle, where you're attached to, it requires a bit more, you know, patience and practice.
Well, and that's why we have these tools, right? So before we end it, because we didn't have our producer here this morning and our battery's low. I mean, we suck.
Well, the analogous.
No,
again, you see, you have to catch the words. We literally have to stop that. I'm really mean this, people.
I was waiting.
I know what you mean.
I was waiting for you to say that's what she said.
All right.
Well, it is what she said, but you know.
Can we move onward
all right,
now?
So to where can people find you to get this amazing tool, to practice this tool with you, to go through this process with you?
I mean, they can get hold of me via email, simon@thefreedomproject222.com. That'll be changing soon, you know, because as we move that on, it'll be simon@simonharris.live. And they can find me on Facebook, Simon Harris, Instagram, Simon Harris 222. I don't write much about freedom activation, much as people want to know it, but as you two know, it's so much an experiential thing. You have to do it as a feeling process, because it is a feeling process, not a thinking process. And I had this question just yesterday from somebody, and you know, just get on a call, feel it, do a short call. Feel the energy, because you really don't know what you've got tucked away. And it is it's a lovely process. It does have results, massive results. Otherwise, I wouldn't keep doing it, because there's no point doing something. But they're not. The only guarantee I can give is if you don't do things, your habit will remain. Whatever it is you're doing, and find that blend that works for you, whatever that is. But make it a consistent practice. That's the bit where the resistance comes in, is going, I don't want to do this, and that's fine too. But once you know 100% you're the cause and effect, then the only person you can point the finger at if you need to, is yourself going, wow, it really is up to me. And as the three of us know, that is a journey in itself of how much are we prepared to take that responsibility on, as opposed to it's still the other person.
Yeah, yep. True. Great way to end that. I mean, yes. Perfect. Thank you so much for being our first guest here, our first official guest. And yeah, if this resonates with you, reach out to Sai and try the process. Just try it. I mean, that's what I always say. Try it, see the results, and like you said, experiential things. So thank you all for joining us for another
joining the analogist
of the conscious couple, or apparently soon to be called Who the Fuck Knows.
No, soon to be called the analogist. That's what it is changed to.
All right, guys.
Make sure you spell that right when you do it.
If you stuck around this long, please comment.
Yeah.
We need to know what
we're
called this thing.
We need to know.
And
we need to hear
like, subscribe, do all the things.
Yeah.
Murphy is sniffing my ass right now.
To go. We love you all.
It's time to go.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
We'll see you next time.
All right. See ya.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.